Welcome to the Friday, September 20th, 2019 edition of the Clemson Dubcast. Busy week as usual at TigerIllustrated.com. Paul Strelo starts the morning off right with some Friday recruiting nuggets, including some intel on Clemson's coaches heading out on the road for the first time during this season's contact period. Got some final thoughts about the football program coming up later today. Talk to Charlotte's AD, Mike Hill, a Clemson guy. Grew up in Clemson, went to Morrison Elementary, R.C. Edwards, Daniel High School before moving on. Remains a huge Clemson fan, and most certainly what Dabo Swinney has done, the way he has created the sort of model college football program, played a big role in his decision to hire Will Healy, who, of course, we talked with earlier this week in the podcast. If you haven't checked that out yet, you must. That guy is you really just get the feeling he's going to end up doing something really special before his career is over. Our title sponsor of the Dubcast from way back in the beginning, August of 2018, Parham Smith and Archenhole Law Firm in downtown Greenville. Blake Smith, a good friend of mine, he's been representing plaintiffs in medical negligence and other personal injury cases for over 15 years. Blake serves on the advisory board for the paralegal program at Greenville Technical College. He recently completed his 10th year as an adjunct pro bono professor at Clemson University, where he teaches sports law. Blake was also featured in a recent Consumer Reports heart surgery risk article. In other words, Blake and everybody else at Parham Smith and Archenhole know what the heck they're doing. Free consultations, 864-990-4581 or online at parhamlaw.com. Want to welcome aboard to the podcast Blackacre Law Firm, sister law firm of Parham Smith and Archenhole in Greenville. Stuart James is a 1998 Clemson grad, big Clemson fan, just like the Parham Smith and Archenhole family. Blackacre gives you the representation you can depend on when you're on the home stretch, closing on your house. All those documents you're signing, all those technical aspects of it, the last thing you want is for something to go wrong at that point. Blackacre also provides services for wills, powers of attorney, durable, and healthcare. Don't put yourself and your family in a bad situation by not having these important documents. Call today for a consultation, 864-775-5400, or go to their website, blackacrelawfirm.com. That's BLACKACRE lawfirm.com. Okay, two blasts from the past. Came over to the home office, otherwise known as my basement, earlier this week. Ray and Fahmarr McElrathbey. It was a pleasure to reconnect with them after a long, long time. I guess it was 2007, 2008, the last time we saw each other. Of course, they are in town for the filming of the movie about their incredible story. It's called Safety. So, of course, you've probably already heard you want to stay in your seats at halftime for Saturday's game against Charlotte. But earlier this week, we wrote a story just about a sort of a retrospective, what it all meant and where they are now, how they sort of look back on everything that happened. Boy, Ray really has an exceptional amount of wisdom for somebody who's been through what he's been through. Just a really sweet guy still, and the same is true for his brother. All right, here we go. Enjoy. Okay, joined by Ray McElrathbey and Fahmarr McElrathbey.
How you doing?
Good day, sir.
So I usually do homework for my interview subjects, and I know I have a general knowledge of what happened back in friggin' 2006 and 2007 and 08, but I got no clue what's happened over the last, I guess, 11 years. So first of all, congratulations on this movie.
Thank you.
Ray finally coming to fruition, and you also, Fahmarr. You're back in Clemson. What's your role right now, Ray? As far as, are you just overseeing, like, you're obviously not in the movie, but you're sort of advisory role? Is that?
Yes. Currently, I work as a consultant to the movie, more so than anything. I do plan on jumping in the movie in some respects, maybe as an extra, do some background. And hopefully that work out. But I doubt if I'm seen. If I am seen, it'll be in passing or something that will be a little less, a little more subtle than actually just being flashed on a cameo in a sense. So that's kind of been my role, and that's the plan moving forward with my role. Just kind of play the background more so than anything.
What about you, Fahmarr?
I want to get in a line or two, but I don't know how that's going to go.
We all want to line to.
So I guess I'll be trying to be seen in passing as well.
So you're just hanging out?
Oh, yeah.
What is that like?
I mean, I'm in and out of being on the set, so it's still like surreal, but like I gotta get away because I feel like I'm in the way sometimes. So I'm like, all right, I be getting too excited sometimes, so I just try to step away from it. But it's unbelievable actually. Like I've thought about something like this, but I've never really thought about it actually happening. So
the fact that it's finally taken place.
Yeah.
Is sort of not really real, and then all these hundreds and hundreds of people devoted to a movie about you two.
Oh, that's crazy as hell. If this, for lack of better words, because when you come, one of the first days of production, because you understand that they'll do rehearsals and things like that, but this was a non-filming day. This is a rehearsal day. But they're getting geared up for the things to come, and the preparation it takes some 6 months to a year to prepare for it. And then they've been preparing for the halftime, for this 8-minute halftime window. 7 minute 7-minute halftime window. They've been preparing for that for about 5 months, and as far as rehearsal is concerned, and to see over 300 at least 300 people working.
Yeah.
300 people that were paid, not 10 volunteers and 290 other people that love you. No, you got 300 paid individuals doing their job for a small moment, for a scene. And you understand, if then you kind of get no, you don't get it. I still haven't figured it out. You can't get a grasp on the magnitude of this project and think that it can happen to you. At least I can. I'm not that person. I never imagined it to be this huge. Even when I've sold my rights in other situations, I figured they was going to put something together. Might be 3 cameras, 4 scenes, something real simple, just like not just like a major production like this has become, and it still is. And so it's only day 3 or 4. And there's so many people have been like tapped. I've ran into so many people. I talked to so many people that are actually on set, people that have jobs at that current moment doing something as part of being part of my life. And these people will forever be a part of my life, because a lot of these people will go back to the film and they'll watch it over and over again to see their selves, and then they'll know that they're to go to a movie about myself and to see themselves, they'll be forever a part of their story too, and to know that so many people are being touched, and it's surreal. It's humbling.
You said you had sold your rights in previous cases before. What do you mean by that?
Well, in order for someone to make a movie in your likeness, they need your rights in order to do that. And so how it initially happens is that someone comes to you and, hey, we want to purchase your rights to do a story about you. And they get your rights or the option to make a story about you for 12, 18 months, sometimes 24 months. And so they have that time period from when you sign your name in order to get a production up and running. Mm-hmm. And if it doesn't work out, then, you get your rights back and you have the right to sell them to anybody else. But if they go into production, then it goes into the next part of your contract where you get paid for it going in the next step. And so initially, I would always get the little upfront money. It was a small portion, maybe $15,000, something like that, to begin to possibly look into doing a story. And I've done that about 4 or 5 times in my life up until this point. And so when Disney came along, it was one of those situations where I was unsure if it was going to ever become a movie. We talked about it. It was like, okay, yeah, all right, yeah, we're going to do a movie. Yeah, I'm excited. Yeah. It was to the point for me, I stopped getting excited about it. It wasn't one of those things that I was like, oh, yeah, we're making a movie about my life. Anytime I sign my rights away, I'd be like, all right, here we go. Mm-hmm. We on this ship again. We go ahead and ride this boat until it's over. Yeah. And then but Disney's different. They have the opportunity to be different because they have the budget to be different. And it was one moment I signed, the next moment we was doing it. It was like, oh, it's for real. And they told me, but I didn't believe them. I had been, as we would say, been gassed up to that point plenty of times. to the point where I was full. I didn't need any more gas to cross the country. And so when it came and it happened, even now, it's still surreal.
So Mark Chiardi, is that his
Chardy.
name? Chardy, sorry.
Mark Chardy, it's okay.
He had a press conference earlier today, and he was saying it's been a 12-year
13.
13. So you've been working with him for that long, but only recently is when Disney came along and decided to purchase it.
Yes.
Okay, and then when was this with the Disney?
Maybe a year ago. Year and a half, something like that.
Okay.
So kind of been in the works. We've been talking about it. We discussed it, and then it was something that they might do, and then it was they're doing it. Someone, I guess the right person read it, and it was time to go.
Well, I'm sure there were times. I mean, that's a long time.
Yes.
Where you're thinking it ain't gonna happen.
Of course. I knew eventually with the movie itself that somewhere along the line it would come out, something would come of it. Because, I mean, so many people were interested and people still show interest. So whoever didn't decided to do it will be, I guess, the studio that did it. But for the most part, I was always skeptical. Even now, not that I'm skeptical, it's just that it doesn't feel real at this point.
Mm-hmm. All right. I want to update everybody on what y'all are doing. First of all, Fahmarr, where are you? What are you up to?
I'm just around Clemson working. Right now, I work at the restaurant Amici. It's on campus across from the tennis courts. And I also make music, if that's... that I don't really consider that a career, but that's just something that I do on the side. But other than that, I'm just hanging around Clemson and living here.
How long have you been back in Clemson?
I've been back this time for like 2 weeks right now, 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks.
Okay. And where were you before that?
I went to L.A. for the past summer, and then before that I was in Clemson.
Yeah,
Okay.
he was in L.A. with me.
And Ray, update everybody. How long have you been in L.A.? What are you doing? Some training and things like that?
Yes, I do personal training. I have a company that's based out in L.A. called FATS, which is Fitness and Training Solutions. I've been doing that for a while now. I do Airbnb. Also was working with the homeless outreach program called HOPIX. And as a family response team specialist, so it just basically help families with recent events in their life that dealing with housing, as far as eviction, rental assistance, things like that. Also worked as an armed security guard.
Nice.
So I did a lot of nightclub work. Ran around with a couple of stars as a security guard, and so it's kind of been my type of thing. And then occasionally I do campaign work. So put together canvassing teams and phone banking teams to go out and educate voters on different candidates and what will be beneficial for their own self-interest.
Any cool stories from the security?
I got plenty of cool stories from my security life. Might even write a script about it.
Sell the rights to that?
Yeah, sell the rights to that. Because it was nights and days. We did a lot of celebrity parties, a party with a lot of NFL guys. And it's interesting because you'll see someone you know. Like I seen a couple of guys from Clemson out in L.A. at parties and things like that, and we'll do parties like Wiz Khalifa birthday party, and then you'll see like other parties you'll be at, and you're like, oh, I saw Spider-Man at a party. You see the new Spider-Man and old Spider-Man, Sean Merriam. You see NFL guys, old NFL guys, new NFL guys. So it's just been an interesting experience as far as stories are concerned. I guess, like I said, I might be selling a script for that. But there's been times where I've just kind of fights and things broke out and parties and a lot of drinking, things like that. So all LA things, nothing too crazy.
How did you end up out there?
Initially, I went out to LA. I was working during the Obama years. Was working doing voter registration for the Democratic Party during the Obama years, and that was fun. And then I ended up having a son.
Congratulations. How old?
Yes, he's 6 now.
6 years old.
And so I've been on the West Coast since his conception, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's one of those situations. His mother is not necessarily the biggest fan of the East Coast, and so we bumped heads with me and her moving back this way. But I I stayed in L.A. to remain close to my son, and now we're planning on coming back east. So
where, like Atlanta?
Atlanta, possibly Clemson, possibly South Carolina. So we're just looking at different opportunities and things like that. So I'm looking to move back.
When was the previous time you had been back to Clemson? How long had it been?
It had been a year and a half ago.
Oh, okay.
About a year and a half. Because Fahmarr was up here, and I came up here to visit him. So I ran around the campus then in an unofficial capacity. Me being me.
Yeah. You mind me asking how your mother?
Yes, she's wonderful. I just got off the phone with her to tell her about me having this conversation with you, being that you are you.
Proud of you.
And then for all the people that didn't know who Larry is, Larry's my guy. Larry's the beginning. Larry is the reason we're all here.
No. Somebody else would have told that story if I didn't. So I just happened to be there.
But he was there. He did the first story, the very first story, the very first Fahmarr and Ray story. So that was
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that, honestly.
A very interesting tidbit about this whole little situation that we come back full circle, and here we are. Back
to the basement.
Yes, back to the basement.
They for the listeners out there, Ray and Fahmarr actually crashed in my basement, I think, for at least a night, maybe a couple of nights.
Yeah, it was a couple of nights. I think it was a couple of nights, maybe even a week.
Yeah. So, I was having to, your memories kind of fade over time, and so I was refreshing a little bit. I think the first time I heard, I guess I got an inkling of what was going on. I think it was Coach Koenig.
Was it Vic?
I think I was having a conversation with him. I could be wrong, but I recall him saying, "Now, Ray, that's a heck of a story. You ought to look into that." I'm like, "Well, what do you mean?" So I started asking around, and then I remember talking to you in the parking lot behind Jervy.
Yes.
For a long time.
Well, you talked to me the first day, and you told me we were going to meet, have a conversation tomorrow after practice.
So you remember all this?
Yes. Yeah. I've told this story occasionally, on many of occasions. I don't know if you've heard it, but you asked to speak to me, and I heard the situation with you and your brother. I'm not sure what's going on, but if you had 10 minutes tomorrow after practice, let's have a conversation. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm excited. It's one of my first interviews as a young man here at Clemson. We met that next day, and we talked for 3 hours.
10 minutes, huh?
Yeah. And then we met again the day after that.
Uh-huh.
And you took it back to your paper, and I think initially you had a column, but your column became the front page story. They ran it on the front page. And then that's what began it all. That's what kind of sparked everybody wanting to participate and wanting to help and kind of let everybody know who I was at the time. And that was it. Because before then, people had heard like rumblings of my story, but not exactly how I came about and how I got to where I was. Your story kind of highlighted that point, and I appreciate you for it.
Yeah.
So that was the beginning of it all, the very first things that's happened all.
I want to, number one, I want to hear you sum up what was going on at that time, just for people who either don't remember well or haven't heard. And then I want you to sum up as a 12-year-old. Is that what it was? How old you were?
About 11 or 12.
11 or 12. I want to hear your recollection of that. Talking about 2005, 2006, right around there when all that stuff was, all that craziness was going on.
Hold on, say that again. What the question?
I want to give the listeners sort of
what was happening,
your recollection of going on back home. What caused you to decide to bring Fahmarr here? Okay. All that stuff, just to sort of refresh.
Okay. What ended up happening, Fahmarr and my family lived in Las Vegas at the time. Things weren't going the best, but Fahmarr called me every day.
It really started with AOL, though. He's skipping parts.
Okay. Well, go ahead, Fahmarr. You talk.
Well, when we first got to Vegas or whatever, I mean, I guess it was like 3 to 4 months into the trip to Vegas or whatever, and it was going decent for like, I guess, the first 2, And when school started, that's when things got weird and things got crazy. Wait, no, it was after school. Like after school had let out, they wanted to get weird and crazy.
It's about your mother and your dad were together.
Oh yeah,
in Vegas.
In Vegas, yeah. We were
That's the people he was saying. He was referring to when he was saying they got weird and crazy. They is my parents.
Yep.
Yeah, it was me, my mom, my dad, my brother Cornelius, and my sister Brittany. We all moved to Vegas, and my dad was already in Vegas, and we moved up there to be with him or whatever. When we got there, it was going great, and then school let out. Or it was close to school letting out, and something about AOL came out, and we were typing back and forth on the computer and whatnot, and then
that's Instant Messenger for all you people who didn't know. AOL was once had Instant Messenger, and Instant Messenger is basically a text sent to another person via computer.
This is pre-flip phone, man.
Yes, this is well before the cell phone dominated the world.
So it was like, I guess it was 2 or 3 nights where we were on there talking to Ray, and the time difference made it where it would get late here, but it would still be time for him to have time to talk, and I had to go to bed or whatever. So I would sneak up, stay up late, or I would rush to be the first one on the computer so I could talk to him, whatever. And it was like, yeah, this ain't working. You hit me up too much on the computer. You're making it seem like an emergency, so let me just give you my number so you can call me or whatever. So I called him. He was telling me about Clemson and whatnot. I kept asking him about how he was doing at school and how it was here, and he was just telling me how much he liked it and whatnot. And I was like, I want to come visit. And he was like, yeah, we can work something out. But he was kind of hesitant, and he wasn't really exactly sure if he wanted to do that or if it would be like something that could happen. But 2, 3 weeks. No, yeah, it's about a month went by.
About a month.
Yeah, a month went by, and I'm calling him every day, like maybe
6 weeks of calling. 6 weeks of calling.
This is your redshirt year? 05?
Oh yeah.
Yes,
okay.
yes. It's 6 weeks of calling. He continued over and over again. I would call my mom and tell her listen, you gotta tell him to stop calling me.
Your mom's getting involved in drugs, and your dad's had a gambling problem. Is that right? That's what was going on.
Yeah, I mean, well, because I've grown up and I've always said my dad had a gambling problem, and that I guess that is not the exact truth. Due to my mother's habits, my dad always tried to make a little bit out of nothing, and so one of the ways you do that is gambling. And so it's not so much of an addiction as almost like it was kind of part of life. It was like, okay, well, because we're in this situation, we have to take a gamble.
Sure, yeah.
And so gambling became actually, almost like a way of life in order to kind of make ends meet. And so he wasn't terrible at it, but he wasn't great. He wasn't great enough to always make it work out. Yeah. And so he had a similar spirit like me, whereas I always believe and I always have faith that no matter what, I'll be okay. That at the end of the day, I'll be okay. And so with that type of belief, you can live life a little recklessly. You can kind of, as me and Jeff talked about it earlier, you just kind of taking shooting craps in life, just kind of rolling the dice at it. Just here we go, we're rolling the dice, and we're gonna see what happens. And then if you hit, hey, it's a wonderful thing. But if not, there can be some times that things don't seem all that promising. And so what came about is a situation where with my mom and her habit that he was always kind of playing from behind the 8 ball. It was just playing from this, just kind of not getting graded on the correct curve. And so I would like to clear that up. It's unfortunate that I was unable to do this before he passed, but actually just thinking about it and being a father myself and seeing how you have to sometimes make sacrifices to make things work out, or you have to take some chances, I realized that it was more so of that than just an addiction to want to go lose money or want to go spend money. It's not like he was going to do it because, hey, I like to do it. No, it was more so like he had options. He had few options to make a whole bunch of money, and one of it is gambling. So sometimes you win some, sometimes you lose some.
He wasn't necessarily forsaking his family. He was trying to actually help.
Yes.
Family.
Yes, because even if thinking back one of the times when I was younger and I felt like my dad wasn't doing enough to be responsible for me and my family, and I didn't realize the pain, the despair, the depression that he could have felt just simply because everything was placed on him, given that my mom had a habit. And it was something that people would tell me. One of my great mentors said once upon a time, it was like, mom could F up 1,000 times and she's still mom. Mm-hmm. Dad, you don't have but typically 1 or 2 chances to mess up and hell with you. It's like daddy don't mean nothing. It's almost one of those situations where daddy got few chances not to be daddy and he's no longer daddy forever. Yeah. Mom could change the world and with all her chaos and she's still mother and is still mom. And I always thought that was an unfair advantage to women. Not that women have it better than men or anything like that. They may not sound sexist, but just in my father's case, I was a lot less lenient on him and the responsibilities that I felt like he neglected, as opposed to my mother. It's almost like I looked at her like, okay, you can do what the hell you do and it'd be all right. And then my dad, listen, dude, you can't mess up, like, because you understand where we at. You know where she at, and you understand that she got a disease, and so you can't mess up. But understanding the pressures of that as a parent now, that was unfair. It was ignorant of me, and unfortunately, I was unable to apologize before he passed. But my dad knew I loved him, and I just hope that holds true forever and ever into eternity. But I think it does. So that part. Back to Vegas.
Okay.
Him calling.
If you don't mind, when did your dad pass? And
my dad passed a year and a half ago in July. Well, not this past July, but the year before in July.
Okay.
On the 15th.
Was he sick or?
Yes. He ended up having going to heart failure. He went into cardiac arrest, and then he was sick for a little bit of time after that, and then his kidneys failed him, and he ended up passing.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to the
happy highlighted AOL Messenger, back to instant messenger back in those days.
Fahmarr coming from Vegas to Clemson, I guess.
Yes, Fahmarr coming from Vegas to Clemson. He traveled as an unaccompanied minor on a plane from Vegas to Clemson. He got here. He was excited to be here, and I'll let him tell you from that point.
Fahmarr's looking at the Clemson media guide, a little distracted over here. You flew unaccompanied from Vegas to Clemson as an 11-year-old.
Yeah.
And was that just to come visit, or was that to come stay?
Oh no, that was just for a visit.
Okay.
I was gonna be like down here for I think a couple weeks or something like that, a few days. I actually flew into Atlanta because I was gonna visit like the rest of my family as well. So it was gonna be like a complete visit trip, and ended up going back with him about 3 days into the week. Got up to Clemson. I seen the Tiger Paws on the road. Met some of the coaches. I seen the Tiger Paws on the buy low, and I was like, I love it here. And we had a conversation, and I kind of just blurted it out like, I'm not leaving. I'm not going back. I don't know if he took it as a joke or not, or if he knew I was being serious, but he kind of just brushed it off at that point at like the first time. And then like, I guess a couple days later, he was like, you ready to go? I was like, go. Not going. He was like, oh, what did you mean? So he had to get on the phone with my moms and whatnot. And then they had their conversation. I'm not really exactly sure what they said, what was said, or how they went about making the decision, but somehow they figured it out where I could stay. And I guess that was on Ray making that decision.
Well, how that transpired was that once he said he's not going back, I'm not sure if he remembered this. And I was like, what you want to do? You want to go to foster care?
Let me call TSS.
And then he was just like, man, I'll go to foster care. And I was, it made me think like, damn, okay, maybe the situation is a little dire than I thought. He called like he was Simeon coming to America. He was like, just in dire straits and, please send help. And so me being in Clemson, which was Zamunda at the time, I felt like I could take little Prince Akeem and make it work. I spoke with my mother. I talked to a couple of my mentors. My mom was okay with it, given her situation. My dad was, somewhat a little standoffish about it, but he was okay, given that my situation was similar, where I stayed with my coaches and I was raised by someone outside of my family. And so I knew about how temporary guardianship and things like that work, because I had not too long ago went through the process as a young kid myself. So I spoke with a couple of people. I spoke with one of my mentors, and I told him, he'll tell you this. He cussed me out. He told me I had to be one of the dumbest people in the world. What the hell is wrong with you? Here you are. You barely. I pay your cell phone bill, so I know you don't have no money. You're on scholarship. You're a kid. I wasn't that responsible. Not responsible enough to be trying to take care of a child at the time. And I was crazy. He knew me for being the reckless kid that, was a kid.
Yeah.
And so when I had told him, I'm thinking about bringing Fahmarr, who the hell you think you are? Like, what is wrong with you?
This is a mentor in Clemson or back in Atlanta?
Back in Atlanta. Okay. This is a mentor back in Atlanta. He went to Clemson once upon a time. He got a degree from Clemson too, and
is this ex-CUDB on Tiger Illustrated?
Yeah, yes. You see, you remember that?
I remember that.
Yeah. That's my dog, Tyrone. Tyrone cussed me out, and it was only, it was all love. It wasn't like to just despair me and make me feel terrible. It was just kind of get me to look at the situation for what the hell I was trying to do. Like, because I, as a kid, I was just like, hey, I'm going to get my brother. What you think? What you mean what I think? That's crazy. What is wrong with you? Like, you can't afford you. How you going to afford him?
Yeah.
And then all this other stuff you got going on with football and life and school. And he was just like, yeah, that don't sound like a smart thing to do. That wouldn't be the brightest thing to do. But I had another mentor, a gentleman named John. John was like, you really want to do it? Okay, go for it. Like, I'll try to help out whenever I can, but I mean, if you think you can do it better than your parents, I mean, if you're in a better situation, why not try it? I mean, if worst case scenario, you got somewhere to send them if it doesn't work out. And just with those two different like contrasts, it was enough for me to be like, okay, I'm gonna try it. Because although Tyrone cussed me out, he was always with me. So like, it's not like I didn't have his support. I just couldn't tell him. Because even once he found out, because Tyrone found out via the internet and the story coming out that Fahmarr was on campus. Because I never told him. It was Tyrone was like a big brother to me. It was like, nah, I'm not going to tell him this, no. Because he just told me that it don't make sense. And if I do it and it doesn't work out, he going to crucify me. Yeah. Like, so if I'm going to do it, I need to be... That also led to me being a little bit more... I guess what's the word when you're sneaking around? A little bit more
cautious,
a little bit more sneaky. It forced me to be a little bit more sneaky about the whole situation. And so, but once I did decide, once he found out that I had Fahmarr, and then it totally changed. It's not like he wasn't ever with me. He was with me. And then from that point, like anytime I was in town, he'll wake me up in the morning and make me get up and cook him breakfast and do the things that I had to do to be a responsible dad or responsible father figure to my little brother. So I do appreciate those things, because even though I defied it and went against his advice, he was there once he found that I made a decision. He was just only there to support me and to make sure I did it the right way. Because if I was going to do it, he said, you need to do it the right way and need to be responsible, need to find some stability. And the same things that Jeff Davis spoke about, and the same things that John, my other mentor, spoke about. But John was more so like, go for it. John's always been the super positive one. Go for it. But Jeff and Tyrone were the more stern. But hey, okay, you can do it. We'll support you, but you're gonna do it. Like you got to be responsible. You got to be a man. That's essentially what they were forcing me to do, and I can appreciate them all for it, because with each turn it made me consider something else. With each conversation I had with each person, there was always something else to consider. It made me become a better parent at the time and a better person in life.
The obvious question: was it the right decision?
I think so.
You don't know a lot of the time.
Even now?
Well, no. Not
Okay,
now,
I'm sorry.
not now. Well, I'm sorry. Let me preface that.
Dang, bro.
It was the right decision, but you don't know a lot of the times, like some of the small things that happen in your day-to-day life that affect so much more in life. Because for me, it was a small decision, because like part of me already knew I wanted to do it, and I didn't fear much because I always knew through faith I was gonna be okay. And like far as food was concerned, I'm like, I got a meal plan. I'm good. So if I'm good, if I can go in there, I can always get food out of the cafeteria if need be. And I mean, we were at Clemson. I was a student athlete. It wasn't like food was hard to come by. If you knew friends, you had some friends. Everybody has food. A lot of the kids don't have real responsibilities, and parents take care of them in college. So they kept food in their refrigerator. All they just had to do is go over and eat it. But that was to say that it was one of the better decisions I ever made in my life, and not knowing it at the time, it was just something I did. It was because, like, even when I made the decision, I was sneaking and doing it. It was like, because to a lot of people, to my coaches, to Tyrone, one of my main mentors and main friends at the time, it was something that was not necessarily the thing to do. Like, it wasn't smart in the sense that, hey, you're a student athlete yourself. You're 18, you never raised, you don't have any kids of your own, you don't have any job, and this is not just your average everyday responsibility. Like, you're not asking me if you can get a hamster. Like, it's a whole human, and they have emotions and things like that, and I'm still learning as a parent. And so to think then I was ready, no, I wasn't. But it still was one of the better decisions of my life, even without the movie.
And so you had custody of him from that point
Yes.
forward.
Yes.
And I know from my perspective, I remember when I did the story, I knew it was a big story. It was a good story. But I remember my editors calling me and saying, we're going to put this on the front. I'm like, okay, yeah, the front. I thought they were talking about the front of the sports page. They're like, no, front of the whole dang paper. I'm like, oh, wow, okay. And then, like, 2 days later, like, media were, like, descending on Clemson trying to tell the story. Did you have any idea of, like when we sat and talked, did you think, okay, this is gonna
No,
be big?
I didn't think it was gonna be big. I knew it was something when we kept talking. Because when I went into it, I mean, it took me back. And, I mean, I guess because I'm older now. But even then, I knew it was like how I came about, how my life had transpired up until that point was something to talk about. Because, I mean, my mom smoked crack from the jump. Like, so from childhood as a kid, running around these impoverished neighborhoods, searching for and meeting drug dealers and having conversations with them about her whereabouts and all kind of things that she may or may not owe money to this person and all this other kind of stuff. Like, that's a movie. I've seen that on TV already. I know that exists. That there's a large swath of individuals who have similar stories and similar backgrounds that kind of go that way. And I knew making it out of the neighborhood that I lived in into college was huge, because I knew that when I realized that I could go to college. Because before 11th grade, I didn't really think about going to college for real. I didn't know how it would happen until I was offered a scholarship. And Ball State University out of Indiana's coach was the first coach to offer me a scholarship. I'm not even sure I can't remember his name. I can see his face. But he offered me a scholarship, and it wasn't until that moment I realized that I can go to college. and it can be something that's real. And so I knew, because how I came about, how I got to that point, and the people that knew my story and how they felt about me, how the people that knew my story and how they felt about me, that it could be something big. There was something to it. There was a aspect of it that other people want to hear about, because it's about perseverance. It's about, sacrifice. It's about getting through it, and knowing that every day is not gonna be your best day, but it's okay, because tomorrow's coming and joy comes in the morning. And so it's just those type of things that let me know that, hey, maybe one day, if people hear about it, if enough people hear about it, someone will be inspired by it. And it's kind of where I'm at with this.
Quick word about Uptown Realty LLC, headed up by Patrick Enzer, former sports writer who decided to get into the real estate game. Uptown Realty, locally owned and operated out of Sumter, but they serve the Eastern Midlands and PD area with the buying and selling of homes, commercial properties, and land. They also offer affordable new housing in the mid 130,000s from a local custom builder. Patrick is the sole owner and broker in charge. Grew up in Anderson, going to Clemson games, been in Sumter for 15 years, loyal Tiger Illustrated subscriber, loyal Dubcast listener. Website is uptownrealtysc.com. Big supporter of the Clemson Dubcast is Harris Flooring America, based in Anderson, South Carolina. Harris Flooring has been instrumental in a lot of the facilities transformation you've seen on Clemson's campus lately. From the Allen Reeves Center to the McFadden Building to Memorial Stadium to the Neary Center. Family owned and operated since 1947. The owner, Scott Junkins, big Clemson guy. Harris Flooring is just as good inside the home and the residential realm as they are with the larger scale commercial stuff. Give them a call, 864-642-6183, or online at flooringamerica-anderson.com.
So once this story got big, the two major things were the NCAA allowed for a trust fund to be set up where Clemson fans or whoever could contribute to you supporting Fahmarr, and then also members of the coaching staff and their families could help take care of him. Fahmarr, you were with the Spences,
yes,
for most of that time. I mean, were you living with them?
Yeah, you can say that. You can say I was living with them, but it wasn't like I was staying there every night. It was like, for the most part, if it was a school night, they would allow me to come over there for most of the week or something like that. But living with them, it wasn't necessarily living with them, because I don't know. I guess I was in and out.
And you had a apartment, like a townhouse over
Madden Bridge.
Over Madden Bridge.
Mm-hmm.
I remember coming over there a few times.
Yes. And so, like, the Spencers were instrumental, very instrumental. The Davises, forgive me if I pronounce this wrong. The Traglias.
Yeah, they
was another
huge.
family. The Sweeneys.
Morrises.
The Morrises.
There was a couple families that helped out.
Wait, even the Chad Morris's?
Oh, no. My friend Jacob Morrison,
I
his
see.
family.
Okay.
Family just in Clemson.
Middle school friend. Which is another thing, like the Clemson family thing is huge and it's fantastic, and it's a real thing. I know they say it a lot and it's advertised, but it is truly a real thing. Like, everybody here is connected, everybody here loves each other, and is really based off of love, respect, and trying to improve your community. And I just want to say thank you for that. I'm sorry, I don't know if that was the right time for that, but
yeah, sure,
that was on my heart.
Of course.
Clemson being the community that it is, yes.
Yeah. I want to ask you, one of the other, I guess, follow-up stories that I did was driving to Atlanta with a photographer and visiting with your mother. She was in a rundown hotel, I guess, off of I-20.
Mm-hmm.
And
on the east side of Atlanta.
Yep. And, I've always been I've been conflicted about that part of the story looking back, because this is a person in her lowest moment, and I'm coming in to spend a couple hours and get some pictures of her. I mean, that wasn't what I was thinking, but in hindsight, that's sort of what I don't know. I don't feel that was maybe the best way to approach it. Do you remember, like, was it?
Well, during that time, people wanted to report on what was factual, what was going on. People always want to hear what the facts are and what is really going on. And where it might not have been the best point of to be visualized, to be seen, it was. I don't think there is a better time for the story to be told. Even now, like that story needs to be told, where there are people out there at their lowest points.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times, nobody wants to be seen at their lowest point. It's embarrassing enough to be at your lowest point. It hurts your pride and things like that. But to be seen by the world at your lowest point is a whole nother monster. And as far as my mother is concerned, looking back on it, I don't think she's excited about being seen in that light. Mm-hmm. But she understood that it's who she was at the time. Mm-hmm. And me knowing that that's just who she was. And a lot of times when you see people or you see someone having a moment that might not be their best moment, it doesn't speak to that person and who they are. At least in most cases, a lot of times it doesn't. It's just who they are at that moment. And sometimes you can be going through things that make you seem as if you're not the best person at that moment. But I think it's important to highlight that in everybody's story, that we all have those moments, because a lot of people think that people don't have those moments, especially people who are about to be in a position that I'm about to be in, where I have a movie. And if the movie didn't tell you about those moments, some might even consider those moments not being there, where there were times of, trials and tribulations, where there were times where I was depressed. And there were times where I didn't think I could make it, and things I felt like were never going to happen. And maybe, some things weren't for me. But through it all, if you stick to it, if you continue to pray and you continue to persevere, that it would all work out. And that's been my stick, and that's I guess kind of how I live my life. And I would I like to think that my family knows that about me and has taken that from me. And to know that, hey, even if we're doing an interview and one of us are not at our highest point, that it's only temporary. And if you look at it like that, if you understand that these trials and tribulations are only temporary and joy comes in the morning, then, hey, you can live your life a lot better. You can run this race in life and know that maybe you can even fall on that first curve of life, and you can get tripped up on the backstretch and fall into the next curve. But it's all about how you try to finish and how you get yourself together to get across that line in life, whatever that line may be for you. I think is the important part. And whereas I don't think she appreciates it, it being seen in that light, I think she understands that it's necessary, and it's only part of her story and not who she is.
Is she in a good place right now?
Yes, she's in a wonderful place right now. She's in a wonderful place right now. And I think one of the reasons I can say what I say now is because she's in a wonderful place right now.
And she's saying she wants to be up here this weekend or sometime this week, so you might actually get to meet her.
Yeah, that'd be great.
You already met her, but you get to see her again.
So, I don't want to pry too much, but she's sober?
Yeah, she's sober. Oh, yeah, she's sober. The only thing about my mom being sober, that she eats. Addiction is not just in drugs, people.
That's right.
You can have an addictive personality.
That's right.
And know that with everyone who's if you in a family where you know someone that has an addiction problem, be careful with these people's kids. Be careful what you say and how you say it and what you do and what you think, because it means something. And as a kid with an addictive personality, you can get addicted to anything. You can be addicted to good things. You can be addicted to the bad things. And be mindful of just knowing that with a kid, a lot of times we didn't pick a lot of stuff that we're into. A lot of it's introduced to us like everything else, because they say kids aren't born hating. Like, no kid is born hating. They're taught how to hate. Mm-hmm. And it's almost the same thing now with addiction. Sometimes you're born with addiction, and whatever you kind of get introduced to might be what you become addicted to. And it could be a good thing, it could be a bad thing. And just know that with the kids, especially kids, because a lot of times growing up, I was considered one of those kids that had an issue. I was considered one of the problem kids. And it wasn't that I was a problem, I was misunderstood more so than anything. And because of my addictive personality, I had like OCD with certain things. Like I had to see stuff a certain way, and if I didn't get things a certain way, then I became agitated and bothered, and I didn't know how to control myself. So I would act out. And some people would just write me off as a bad kid, whereas others was like, okay, we need to get him something else to kind of focus on and give him something else to do. And luckily, a lot of people did that with me because I was rebellious as hell. I grew up not necessarily thinking I needed anybody because my mom was her addiction, my dad was in and out. So, becoming a grown young man was something I did relatively quickly, where I thought I can take care of everything by myself. And I guess that's one of the greatest things about me and one of the worst things about me. During those times, I developed one of those kind of personalities where I don't think I need you. But we all need somebody. And for a long time, I was the only little drummer boy in my band. And so I tell people sometimes my arrogance is because I was the only one that was drumming. I was the only one that was telling me that, hey, you better than whatever these people are saying about you. You're smarter than whatever these people are saying that you're not dumb as these people talk about you about. Even when I made bad decisions, like because I was arrested in 4th grade, and whereas some people would have wrote me off as just being a terrible kid. I was lost. I was without guidance and things like that. And so I say all that to say, you just never know what your interaction with someone could become. And so be mindful of that. And so let's try to be less judgmental. And don't be as hard on yourself. 'Cause you don't have to be hard on yourself. You came down there and you shined a light on something that needed to be seen. Because without that light, she probably wouldn't have realized that she needed help. And something else could have came of it. So I guess with everything, you got to take the good with the bad. And it's one of those things.
The fame from all that was obviously a positive in the form of all that support that you guys got. And I want to ask both of you this. Was it a negative in any way?
I'll let Fahmarr start with that one.
Fahmarr, are you still reading that media guide?
It was only a negative, like, when I was a kid, honestly. Like, as far as
Hold the microphone up to your mouth. Yeah.
It was only a negative as far as, like, being a kid. And it was just, I don't know, it got in the way of playing outside, I guess. So I kind of got frustrated with that. But other than that.
You mean all the, like, all the TV cameras and all that?
Yeah, just
Oprah Winfrey. And
timing and whatnot. Like, sometimes I just wanted to go outside and play. And they was like, it's time to go and do an interview. I was like, oh, okay.
Uh-huh.
But, I mean, you get over that part. It's just like you just got to learn to appreciate it. I guess I was being unappreciative at that moment in time, but it's only happened like once or twice, though. So.
And you're at R.C. Edwards and then Daniel, and, like, you're overnight a celebrity.
Yes, sir.
What's that like in middle school?
It's insane. I don't even know. It's still kind of hard to process it, but it was instant almost. It was like, well, I'm just walking around in middle school. Next thing I know, if I go to this game, it's like a couple thousand people want to talk to me. I'm like, I don't know. Let me step back again. I don't know. It was.
But that's about it. Just a distraction.
Stop saying I don't know.
It's not a distraction. It was just a lot to process at that time, and I don't know.
Just the inability to be just a normal kid.
Yeah, that part. But once you get over that, it's amazing. It's honestly great.
Ray?
Negatives.
Dang. Old media always bring up the negatives.
Well, I can't. Knowing
Can't
everything,
think of any?
Knowing what I know now, because I guess in my old age, of all these 32 years I've been out here, you know, grinding, trying not to get gray hair. I've come to realize that a lot of the times when I look back at something that may have been considered negative, it was the beginning of one of the greater things in my life. Speaking of such things, the first thing I just spoke about not too long ago was that me being arrested in 4th grade. Mm-hmm. I got arrested and I was had a knife at school. I flattened the principal tires, threatened to kill him. All kind of craziness, foolishness. And they kicked me out of elementary school. And because of that, I had to go to alternative school. And when I reached my alternative school, it was called David T. Howard Elementary. It was in a building downtown Atlanta, next to Atlanta Medical Center. But anyway, in there was me and there was this other kid named Marcus. And then this other kid named Steven came. It was 3 of us. Marcus was already there. I came, and then within a week of me being there, a kid named Steven came. Being that it was alternative school, they had a 0 tolerance policy about kids getting into it. Marcus and Steven got in the fight, and it left me. So they got kicked out of alternative school, and it was just me. And so here I am in alternative school, but it's just me and one teacher. And this teacher, she's a retired teacher, so she knew her job. She knew what she was doing, and she was a woman of a certain age, as I would always say, 55 plus, Mrs. Jones. And throughout 4th and 5th grade, I was with Mrs. Jones. And because of that, it was better than a tutor. It was better than any educational program I probably could have entered at that time, given that it was just, hey, it's one student, one teacher for a year. Mm-hmm. And so it got to the point where we were so advanced, and I got so advanced in my classwork that every day we would begin with the crossword puzzle. That's like the beginning of the day. We do crossword puzzle, and then we go over the vocabulary from the crossword puzzle. And at every end of each day, we watch a movie. And so I had enough time to do my crossword puzzle and watch a movie in the day of school. And so that's how I became a real big movie buff way back when I was young, because she kind of wore out her Blockbuster pass in those days, just kind of keeping me entertained. So it's experiences like that where I considered that, hey, that might have been one of the worst things that could have happened to a kid. He's sent to alternative school, because actually if I was in middle school, I wouldn't have been able to progress from 6th grade to 7th grade or from 7th grade to 8th grade. But because I was in elementary school, I was able to go from 4th to 5th. If I would have gotten any trouble in middle school, once you're in 6th grade in alternative school, in middle school, you stay in 6th grade until you leave alternative school, and you can't progress anymore until you get out. And so I was in a unique situation where I was a young kid, I got in trouble, and it ended up being the best thing that ever happened to me. One of the better things that ever happened to me. And I have other stories like that where I was considered with some of the things that were totally terrible in my life, where others look at it as totally terrible, where I look at it as, oh man, that was one of the better things that ever happened to me. And so that's how I go about it. So even with the tragic things, or things that seem like they might be disparaging, I wait and kind of try to get the whole picture, and just kind of see what comes of it. Because it's in each situation, something's come of all those situations I've been in where I would think that this can't be life. This is terrible.
Do you remember how much money was raised?
It was
total?
over $100,000.
Wow.
Over $100,000. Yeah.
Wow. I came across a story. Let's see, March 8th, 2008. I guess during spring practice.
Okay.
And I wrote it for the Post and Courier. Ray McElrathbey is done with football at Clemson, and a teammate said it's because the Tigers coaching staff decided not to renew his scholarship for the 2008-2009 academic year. Clemson announced McElrathbey a reserve tailback. I forgot you moved to tailback.
Yes.
That he's no longer with the team. They offered you a chance to, I guess, be a graduate assistant.
Yes.
James Davis, a senior tailback for the Tigers, said McElrathbey told him he didn't have a choice. He said something about how they weren't going to renew his scholarship, said Davis, who has been friends with McElrathbey since their high school days in Atlanta. It really surprised me, but there's a lot of stuff you can't say. It's something I guess everybody has to learn to live with. So basically they brought in I mean, they were pretty loaded at running back with Andre Ellington.
Cumbie. Jamie. No, Jamie.
Oh, no.
Not Cumbie.
Jamie Harper.
Jamie Harper.
Jamie Harper.
I said Cumbie.
Spiller. So was it a case of they had more options, and what's the, I don't, I'm not asking you to disparage anybody. I'm just curious what's your recollection of that?
It was because in the story we speak about Clemson. Clemson decided, but it wasn't a Clemson decision. It wasn't necessarily. It was the coaching staff, and they felt at the time that I had a lot of responsibility, which I did. Looking back, and my focus was in other places. And given that being a situation, they felt like it was a better situation to move forward without me. How I felt about it at the time, hey, like I said, it was one of those tragic things that ended up being one of the better things in my life. Because at the time, I wasn't too concerned about living my life outside of football. And then that's one of the things that let me know that, hey, you got to live your life outside of football. Mm-hmm. Like, football is not promised. Because it still felt like, I was holding on to that dream of professional sports. And it had diminished some because with the ACL thing, when you go and miss a year, when you hurt like that, you start to realize that, hey, I might need to look at other things other than what I'm doing currently, which is one of the reasons I graduated early. I took 21 credit hours some semesters, 18 credit hours in 2 or 3 semesters. And so I made academics a big part of my life as opposed to anything else. And given the decisions I made, it brought me here. It brought me to this point where I have the opportunity to talk about it. And no, I've never had any ill feelings towards Clemson University. And so even in stories I hear about it, it says Clemson University decided. No, Clemson University didn't decide anything. If anything, Clemson wanted me here, and Clemson tried to keep me here. I just decided that I wanted to do something different. I wanted to continue to play. And I was unfortunate in the sense of I wasn't able to keep my scholarship, but there was opportunities for me to remain at the university. I just had other plans. And looking back at it, hey, it's my life. It kind of goes with my story. It's just something I'm going through and something I went through, and I became a better man because of it.
So rewinding back to August of 2007, it's a few days before you tore up your knee. I guess I interviewed you, and you said your point was that your fame had sort of forced you to live to a higher standard. You said, I'm not what everyone wants me to be. I'm a 20-year-old that isn't expected to live like other 20-year-olds, and I can't do the things that as a 20-year-old I would normally do because everything I do is magnified, changed, and looked at differently. I have to live up to standards that I wouldn't say they're unfair, but they're hard. Is that how you still... I mean, do you remember sort of having that point of view?
Oh, yeah, that sounded grim. It sounded grim, like I was going through it at the time. It sounded like that.
Does it sound like, do you think back and go, man, that sounds like a kid talking?
Not necessarily a kid talking. It sounds like I was going through a range of emotions that I was not equipped to understand at the time. Uh-huh. And it was the youth in me that wanted to be, like in Michael Jackson case, I wanted to free my youth. Like I wanted to be regular a little bit. But there's some perks that come with being extraordinary, and there are some perks that come with being regular, and you gotta take the good with the bad. And I think that sounds like, from that interview, it sounds like I was going through it. It wasn't one of the better times. But it sounded as if I understood the magnitude of the situation. Where it's unfair. It might be unfair, but who cares? It's not important. You just got to go through it and live up to those standards to try to, be the best you that you can be. And Yeah, I mean, I guess that was it. That was kind of how I felt at the time, and hearing that, it's like, wow, Ray, you was going through it. Like,
what were your classes with the coaches about? What, not classes necessarily, but were you missing some practices? Were like academic stuff? Like what? When you say you wanted to play, like you wanted to be,
not necessarily play. Okay, with me, like I said, I was my own drummer for a long time in that band of Ray. So I clashed with anyone that wanted to support me outside of how I wanted to be supported. Because I had always, like I said, marched to my own drum. So I'll get into it with coaches or get into it with the coaching staff simply because of things like study hall hours. Mm-hmm. I graduated in 3 years. Now, I wasn't saying I was the smartest person in the world, but as far as study hall was concerned, I looked at it like, I don't necessarily need it. It wasn't that big of a deal for me. But in the grand scheme of things, it's like the NFL rules policy with OBJ and his watch. I mean, you can only let so much go before it becomes something else, and it becomes something else, and it becomes a small thing, became a big thing. But if you could nip it in the bud in the beginning, just go ahead and nip it in the bud. And I wasn't into nipping things in the bud, especially early on. I guess I went about things a little differently. I guess I was a little tyrannical. Mm-hmm. And it's not that I had bad ideas. I just typically did them on my own because that's how I was used to moving on my own. Like, so I didn't necessarily consult people about how I decided to move. And so when typically people found out what I did, not I apologized more than I asked questions or asked for permission, not forgiveness, but permission.
Fahmarr, what's your recollection of him as a dad during that time?
I don't know.
And when you hear all, him reflecting,
I mean,
on that.
I ain't never really knew he felt that way about it at that moment. But I mean, I guess I can understand it because I have those moments too, and I'm not even dealing with, I guess, half the stuff that he was dealing with back then, and I'm older than he was. But yeah, I mean, I can understand it. I've never really read that piece or heard him express that kind of feelings. But
do you guys with the movie? I mean, it's great that they're doing a movie, but do you want to make sure, or is there any, I don't want to say concern, but do you want to, are you really interested in them representing what happened, I guess is what I'm saying. Like, Hollywood, can sort of take stuff and run with it in certain ways. I'm just wondering how much care they've taken, and y'all being sort of an advisory role with the script. I mean, how close to reality is the movie?
Fortunately, I was mentored early on in this process by the director of this movie, a guy named Reggie Hudlin. And Reggie told me, don't get so caught up in the words of the script and the things that's going on in the script. Feel more worried about, is it in the spirit of your story? Because a lot of times with Hollywood, anytime you use someone's likeness, you technically owe them a check.
Yes.
And so you can only use so many people who are actually real people and pay them without the budget for the movie being something ridiculous. Not that it couldn't be something ridiculous because it's Disney, but they shied away from getting true to life characters. And then even with the people that I did speak about within my story, in order to keep it from being part of their story, to making it part of their story, they changed names, okay, so if he was black, let's make him white, or if he was white, let's make him black, or just kind of, okay, well, these initials are too close to the actual person, so let's change this person's name. Mm-hmm. And so it was things like that because I had to go meet with a couple of people about the script and they asked me about every person, every character, to make sure that it wasn't too true to life to a lot of people, because that's
to shell out money.
Yeah, you got to pay them.
Yeah.
Even my mother, and it's my siblings and things like that. So it's almost like you got to kind of be careful. And they was extra careful with who they portrayed and how they portrayed it, because whether it's you want to be paid for your likeness, or if you want to be paid because you felt like you were what's the word, when people slandered or someone defamed. So to make sure that wasn't the case, and then this is also Disney. We took enormous steps to ensure that it was in the spirit of my story and not exactly what my story is. And so I would like everyone who sees the movie to understand that listen, I picked no characters. I didn't. Only me and Fahmarr are the only people that I could control in the sense of what we may or may not be able to say. And understand, this is Disney. This is the same Disney that owns ESPN and ABC and everything under the umbrella of anything that you might love. So don't come to me. I've seen messages already on my Facebook about people being different characters and how they might be or may not be portrayed. I have nothing to do with that. I have some creative control, but that's basically to make sure I'm a human. That's just kind of be like a human, not even like what I get to say or what I can't say. Just that I'm human. I only can be human in the story. And it's in the spirit of my story, so I was just like everyone to keep that in mind. Yes, that's it.
What did Jeff Davis give you any advice today when y'all?
Man, Jeff is walking advice.
Yeah.
Jeff should get paid by the minute. As far as, especially if he's talking. Because Jeff has always been the rock for me, especially in Clemson during my Clemson time. We've always been able to have conversations with each other that span well beyond just everyday life. And Jeff was extremely instrumental in me raising Fahmarr, because one of the greater things Jeff told me, not even today, way back when Fahmarr was messing up in school, I was pissed off, upset, mad, didn't know what to do. Jeff has 7 kids. So Jeff, hey, man, Fahmarr's not doing good in school. I don't know what to do. I think he's crazy. I think he lost his mind. I could beat him. Well, he was like, well, Ray, okay, have you been to a school? I drop him off every month. No, have you actually been in the school? Like, have you spoken with his teachers? Do you help him with his homework every day? Does you make sure he studies? Do you ask him how he's doing? And all my answers were yes. He said, so if you can't answer yes to all those questions, well, you haven't done your job. So you can be mad at Fahmarr, but you need to be mad at you, because he don't got nothing to do with being a child. He's going to be a child. His leadership and his guidance comes from you. And so if you're not doing everything you're supposed to do, you can't expect that from him. And that's one of the better things in my life that I consider one of the better advice moments in my life as far as advice goes. Like, okay, first do everything that you're supposed to do. And if you do everything that you're supposed to do, then you can look outside yourself if something goes wrong. But if you're not taking care of everything that you're supposed to do, then you don't have any questions. You don't have any things for anybody else. You shouldn't have any speeches for anybody else other than, I hope you get it together like I'm trying to get it together. And so that, and I spoke with Dabo and Jeff today, and like always, I was asked, did I know that, Clemson would become Clemson, the Clemson that we know of today? And I said I always had an inkling of it, especially when Dabo became the coach, and then I realized the instrumental part that Jeff Davis played into the program, being part of player development. And I said, those two individuals, they live with their faith on their sleeve, like they are highly favored, and I feel like them, like myself, just our favorite. Like God has plans for us, and God speaks through us and through our lives as examples of just how to persevere. How everything's not perfect, and Dabo will tell you, and Jeff will tell you that they've neither one of them have lived perfect lives. They do their best to be the best individuals that they can each day, and that's all we can do. And keep faith and be strong and put God first. And just those conversations, just that type of advice has always been the advice of those two individuals. And so, yeah, I mean, that's, for the most part, that's kind of been the whole thing. I think that's what's made this program what this program is. And I mean, one Clemson, one family, all in has been the case since I've ever known it. And I spoke earlier about how I thought Jeff, one of the reasons that Jeff is a big part of my life, because I remember the first time I've seen Jeff, seen him. He came and he spoke to the athletes, and he was in front of us, and he was telling us about all the things that, they first would do the little part where you stand up and be like, okay, you sit down, and okay, y'all sit down, okay, now these are the people that you're going to graduate with. And the rest of y'all are not going to, unfortunately, probably won't make it. And we did that part, and then he talked about Clemson being a family and how all the things that you could never want could be accomplished here. And he began to sing the fight song, and he cried. And I didn't understand it. What the hell is a grown ass dude? This big linebacker. Y'all got this big linebacker dude. He in here crying. Like, what is wrong with him? And I didn't understand that the emotions that come with being part of this family, and and I do now. Like, because I know one day, while in front of student athletes, because I will eventually be running my mouth in front of a group of student athletes that more likely will be at Clemson University, and I'll be able to tell them, like, my experience and how this is a family, and how you just joined the family, and hey, welcome, brother. And I'll get to sing the fight song, and I'll probably cry, and I probably won't be able to get through my speech. And I look forward to that moment. And I'll probably break down this weekend. I don't know. I just can't imagine all the stuff that's happening really being real. So it's surreal. And I talk about waking up. And eventually I'm going to realize I'm not asleep.
Fahmarr, the support system that I guess you had back in those days, does it still exist? Do you still have people you like? What is your support system around here? Do you are a lot of those people still around, or no?
Yeah, most of them are still around. The Treglias, the Morrises. I haven't talked to the Davises or the Sweeneys in a while, but I plan on communicating with them pretty soon. They're here.
They still here.
Yeah,
they ain't going nowhere. They fixtures, and they'll be fixtures in your life. They help out no matter what.
Them, it was on me.
Either way.
It was on me.
Either way.
But yeah, they're still here. They're still supportive.
You're feeling bad about not keeping in touch?
Oh yeah, terrible.
Yeah, really?
Yeah. Because it should have been something that should have been easy to do. It's just that I just felt like I wasn't in a position as far as like with the school thing and progressing my life. I guess I wasn't doing that how I thought they would want me to do it. So I kind of distanced myself, I guess. So that's kind of just what happened, and I do feel bad, and I apologize, but yeah.
What do you mean? You were what were you doing that you don't think they would have?
Just not finishing school, not being in school, and just advancing in my life and whatnot. Like, I just recently got a car. Like, I haven't had a car. I mean, and when I did, I kind of messed it up. So I was just not doing the right things.
Being a kid, man.
Yeah.
Like we all have been.
And so I don't know why he's disparaged, but I can understand it though, because with everything that happens, you want to be the best you to the people that you think care about you the most. And when I spoke about a mentor earlier, Tyrone Hill, ex-CUDB, I went through a similar situation with him where we lost contact because I was being a jackass, for lack of better terms, and not understanding that our relationship is much bigger than my success. Because I thought that I had to be in the best place to be able to have conversation with these people, because if I'm not in the best place I need to be, that they were going to look at me differently or not love me the same, because a lot of the times we think that the love we receive from other people is based on how we're currently doing and how they see us. And if we take a step back, which I had a chance to take a step back because I had a similar situation with another one of my brothers where it was simple as he owed me money.
Cornelius?
Cornelius owed me money. It's interesting, you know. Cornelius owed me money, but Cornelius stopped talking to me because he owed me money. And I'm like, dude, like, come on, like, I don't care that you owe me money. Like, you my brother. We can still talk. I'm be pissed or whatever that you ain't gave me my money back, but we brothers. Like, we bigger than the monetary. We bigger than, and it was a similar situation with me and Tyrone, and I think Fahmarr needs to understand that it's a similar situation. Whether he feels like that with me, or he's not living up to where he's supposed to be, that we love you regardless. Right. And Clemson loves you regardless. And Jeff Davis, Dabo Sweeney, Rob Spence, and Susan, those people love us regardless, even when we're not our best selves. Because as humans, everybody understands that you're not always your best self. And so if I always talk about people loving you unconditionally when you're wrong, that's the kind of the best type of love. Like when people can love you unconditionally when you're wrong, when they know you wrong, then those are the people that you need to keep close to you. And Dabo and Jeff and all these other people in my life, Tyrone, John, these people love me through my F-ups. And so I want Fahmarr to understand that even with me, like, dude, you my brother. Like, I love you. I don't give a shit if you go to do 10, 15 years in prison. Right. Like, you still my brother. Like, you still my brother. I still want to hear from you. I still hope you're okay and all this other stuff. And it's the same with everybody else. And I think as humans, we need to understand that, because we all come to that point, I think, where we feel like we're less than. We're not what we sought out to be, and because of that, we think we failed ourselves, and not only failed ourselves, but the people that love us. But the people that love us really love us. The people that really love you will love you no matter who you are. They love you because you're Ray, not because you Ray with $1 million, or you Ray that's broke, or you Ray in prison. They love you because you're Ray, not anything else. You can only be yourself, and they love you for who you are, and that's something that you can appreciate about the people of Clemson. And although he said he didn't speak to these people, he doesn't foresee going the rest of his life without speaking to these people. And I don't see if he ever thought that, why he would. Because even these people, I spoke to Jeff today, and if I don't talk to Jeff for 10 years, if I call Jeff, I still expect Jeff to help me. Right. And just vice versa. If I ain't talked to Jeff for 10 years and Jeff called me and was like, Ray, I need you. Hey, I'm on my way. What you need? Like, it doesn't. We don't have to keep in contact every day. We understand that we are all human beings. We all have our lives to live, and so at least I understand that. And I think that comes with age, because it's not something I knew when I was his age. At 24, I didn't think like that. Because hell, me and Tyrone fell out right around the time I was his age, and it wasn't until it happened to me. Because a lot of times that's what they say in politics, where it's people, people will have these thoughts about things, and then until it's them in those situations, and then you realize, like, hey, well, hold on, wait, now we should do this differently. Because one of the prime examples, when crack hit the African American community, It wasn't the whole talk like they talk about opiates. No. It wasn't a problem. It wasn't like, these people need help. It wasn't seen as a disease. It was not that. It was like lock all their ass up. This is criminal behavior. This is crazy. And so I say that's just to kind of give you perspective. Like,
you've been watching Dave Chappelle too, huh? He said the same thing.
Hey, but man, I've been on politics for the longest. It's not just the Chappelle. Like, it's been the case. But a lot of times in life in general, though, you have to. It's a lot of times you have to just go through stuff. So I don't fault a lot of people for some of their viewpoints because they don't know no better. Most of them, they haven't been through enough to know nothing. And if you haven't been through nothing, you really can't. I tend not to look at you as someone that can tell me a whole bunch because you haven't really been through nothing. Not to discredit anyone who feel like they have something smart to say or something great to say because they've lived a great life, but it's people. It's I say real people. Everybody's been through something. So whether you want to lie to me about you not going through something, or you not having some trouble somewhere in your life, or you not having some disparaging thing about you, if you want to put on that facade like you perfect, okay, go ahead. But I ain't gonna, you're not gonna be real too cool. Because if you perfect, you're not authentic to me. You're not real.
If you run a business that conducts credit card transactions with customers, you got to learn about Tandem Payment. Credit card processing company has offices throughout the Southeast, but the one in Greenville in the upstate, headed up by a 2005 Clemson grad. Tandem's technology allows business owners to offset their credit card processing costs by applying a small customer service charge to each sale they make. Tandem has an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and was awarded the Better Business Integrity Award in 2013. Check them out at tandempayment.com. Over the year we've been doing the Dubcast, we've developed a great relationship with the folks over at the Abernathy Boutique Hotel. In addition to being a great meeting spot for our interviews we conduct with local personalities, it's also a fantastic place to stay. The Abernathy is rolling out a loyalty savings program for 2019. After your third stay, you'll automatically be rewarded with an exclusive offer. It can be applied to future reservations for the remainder of the year. 15% off rooms, 15% off food and beverage at Taps Bar and Cafe. Learn more at theabernathy.com.
So the Sweeney, like Kathleen Sweeney, like they took you into back in the day, back when you were.
Oh yeah. They did a lot of things to help out. Rides from school, a couple things of clothing, just being there in general.
Employment. He was a babysitter for the Sweeneys for a moment.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
For Clay and.
Yep. Well, mainly Clay. Will and Drew kind of took care of themselves, but I was there just to chill and whatnot, and hang out.
Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Kathleen.
Along with JD and Judah Davis.
Yeah. Over in Country Walk.
Oh yeah.
Oh, Country Walk.
Kathleen, one of the sweetest people on the planet.
Oh my gosh, she's an amazing person. I love Miss Sweeney. Coach Sweeney as well. The kids are amazing. It's just a great family. Honestly, it couldn't be more perfect.
Most Clemson families are great. Hell, whereas even Bobby, not Bobby, but Tommy. Tommy Bowden. He's not a bad individual. Coach making coaches' decisions. I understand it's a business. And so all the people that have pretty much come through Clemson have been great individuals. The Spencers, wonderful individuals. Mm-hmm. Wonderful people. All these people are people of faith. They have integrity and all those good things. And so as I was just going through my speech about, sometimes you catch someone at not the best time in their life. And you got to understand that doesn't really define that person. It's just who they were at the time. And know that, hey, if you can think back that at other times where they weren't this person when they weren't the person that they were when they were at the worst time of their life, or that it wasn't the better times of their life, just kind of think back to who they were when you first met them, or when you were okay with them, when you were cool. Because when you were cool with someone, when you I guess see in the same direction, when y'all on the same wavelength, things could always be easy. Everything is always cool. They're always a great person then. But then when you clash, when you go against someone, when you have this differentiating thoughts, that is one of those times where you need to understand that that's just that moment. It's not necessarily who they are. A lot of times it's just the moment. It's just the circumstances, not necessarily the person. And so I've in age and growing up, I've learned that.
What do you want to be doing in 10 years?
10. Occasionally, I want a recurring role at Clemson University as an ambassador, because I think I could be a very great ambassador for this university because I've always been Clemson since I started. I think I can't come up with any disparaging words about Clemson, so it'd be the easiest thing for me to do as far as being an ambassador because I can always talk great about Clemson. The movie will come out, hopefully do a book, and just kind of probably end up working for the university in some capacity. Ambassador sounds great. Tag team with Fahmarr, we'll probably go on a couple of FCA tours. Mm-hmm. And run our mouths 10 years, and to just kind of be able to, tell this story, to just tell the story of Clemson, to tell the story of Ray and Fahmarr, possibly get Fahmarr a deal for his story, like his real story, like the story of him coming up in college and from his perspective. Because I know that's it's a movie. I know it's a movie because I was there. And if what I had going on was a movie, I know what he had going on is just as much entertaining. So in 10 years, just books, all things Clemson, and just kind of living our lives as successful individuals. My kid will be 10 years, so he'll be committed to Clemson, hopefully. He's 6 now, so 16 he can commit. And we'll go from there. Hopefully his brother is already at Clemson, because my son has my son's mother had a child previously. Mm-hmm. So my son has a brother who's older, so hopefully I'm trying to get him to come to Clemson. He's supposed to come to the game this weekend, too.
Nice.
So, it'll be interesting.
Fahmarr, 10 years. Where you want to be?
10 years? Well, honestly, my first plan is music, whether it's production, audio engineering, or making it, rapping, or writing. But other than that, I would like to get involved in some kind of coaching, whether it's youth, middle school, high school, college. So I guess I just have to look into doing that. So I guess I would end up going back to school, maybe for business management or something like that.
He didn't say nothing about speaking with me. I just gave him a whole career with me, and he trying to not be with me. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Can I get there? That's just what I have on my mind before all of this. But yeah, that's just like two of the things that I have on my list of things that I would like to do for a living. Or
we working for Clemson.
I'll say this: just a suggestion. If somebody ever decides to do a movie on Snoop Dogg's life, you would portray him, like, for sure.
I'll take the role.
Anybody ever told you that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Anything else, gentlemen, that we haven't covered?
Yeah. For all the people who are out there listening, this is Larry Williams, formerly of the Charleston Post Courier, and currently of
TigerIllustrated.com.
TigerIllustrated.com. And I don't know if I could do this in this small little speech, but I am very thankful to have met Larry, to have known Larry. Larry has always been there for me. And it's not just the stories that you hear about. There's some stories that you do not hear about. And I can appreciate Larry for keeping those stories to himself.
I don't remember these.
Oh,
you have to refresh my memory once we stop here.
We're not going to talk about these such things on the mic. But I just like to say I appreciate you.
Thank you.
And I appreciate the part you played in my life and the part you will continue to play in my life, like everyone else here at Clemson, more so than anybody else at Clemson. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity that you've gave me to tell my story and allow me to get my story out to the world. And yeah, I mean,
of course, I should be thanking you. I mean, like I said, somebody was going to tell it eventually, probably soon thereafter if I didn't. So I don't really feel there was anything special on the part of my telling it, but I do appreciate the kind words. So
you did it. You told me.
I do remember.
We met.
I remember a few weeks after, like, I felt like I was sort of riding your roller coaster. Because I didn't know where you were living. It's like, man, what's he doing? I remember I went and sat in Jeff Davis's office one day. I'm like, man, what's he doing? What? And I'm like, should I offer my house, for them to stay, or whatever. And Jeff's like, he's eating an apple. I'll never forget. He's like, oh no. He goes, Larry, you don't realize you high profile. You can't be doing that. It's like Ray's got his own life, and so I think that's what it took for me to, I guess, look at it in a less emotional way, because I think I got really sort of not invested, but I felt tied to it, to your story, and you.
I mean, because you knew it.
Yeah.
I mean, anybody that tend to get the chance to interact with me and know my story, it becomes part of my story because I'm inclusive like that. And yeah, I can't imagine you not going on the roller coaster, because there was some roller coaster times. We were going some ups and downs, and there was some stories, like I said, some stories that you heard about and some stories that you didn't hear about. And just lucky. I guess we both were just lucky to be a part of each other's life.
Even asking that question speaks to his heart, though. even thinking about even offering that's like commendable. I like just even having a thought like that. I really appreciate that, honestly. I mean, I guess I don't know. It's amazing. Like, never really would have thought that it would have came to this, or came from that. Couple conversations, couple curiosities, and took off. Really appreciate you.
Yeah, y'all too. Man, congratulations. Looking forward to Saturday. I'll be in my seat at halftime. I know that. I hope all the fans who are in Death Valley stay in theirs as well.
Yes, the word was we were trying to break the noise record. And being that there will be cameras on hand, that it's highly possible we can be filmed, and then it'll forever be in the film, and it's forever part of our legacy as a university. Our legacy as a university. That's all of us people. That's the whole thing. That's Clemson. We can be outside the stands yelling, but I'm going to be in there yelling, and I appreciate everyone and everything that's ever happened to me at Clemson University, and just know that there's no place like it.
Fahmarr?
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say, we want to break the sound barrier, but don't forget we still got to whoop Charleston.
Charlotte.
He don't even know who he's playing. See, that's
right here in front of me.
That's what happens when you pass your opponent. It's okay. Been saying it's a C. Good job, Charlotte. I appreciate you all being part of my story, whether it's just for a half or so.
Thank y'all. Congratulations. And I'm guessing this won't be the last time y'all are on the podcast. So
not at all.
Take care.
All right. Thanks to Ray and Fahmarr. Man, what a story. Those are two special dudes right there. Also, great to hear their mother is doing so well after all the demons she battled. Thanks to all y'all for listening. 5,000 downloads in the last 7 days. 180,000 in, I guess, the 13 months we've been doing that. So really encouraged by that. Also, really appreciate our sponsors, including title sponsor, Parham Smith & Archenhold Law Firm in downtown Greenville. Everybody have a wonderful weekend, and we will be back next week. Cheers.